From a purely scientific point of view, humankind has not yet been able to detect extraterrestrial life forms, even if this doesn't necessarily mean that the existence of aliens is categorically ruled out. Nobody can currently say if or when we'll make contact with our galactic contemporaries. Or can they? According to some incredible stories, countless encounters between humans and extraterrestrials have taken place in the past. Unfortunately, the visitors from other worlds did not usually decide to knock on our earthly front door and say hello in a friendly manner, but preferred to take the completely surprised Earthlings with them on their spaceships as guinea pigs. What's often labeled as made-up stories without a true explanation actually has a following that's not to be overlooked and is firmly convinced of the authenticity of the alleged alien abductions. The corresponding cases range from bizarre human experiments to inexplicable memory loss to unexpected romances. Are the supposed reports nothing but brazen fairy tales or real close encounters of the third kind? Stay tuned and make up your own mind. Here are 5 chilling cases of alien abduction. But before we get started, be sure to hit the like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Also, stick around until the end because you won't want to miss today's final story. Elizabeth KLARER. When Elizabeth KLARER looked at the night sky over her South African homeland as a 7-year-old girl, she already suspected that she just observed something unconventional in the sky. But even if young Elizabeth mistook the object in the firmament for a flying saucer, what the South Africans said happened shortly afterward is difficult to explain. In fact, the sighting of the spaceship is said to have marked the beginning of an intimate relationship between the Earth dweller and an extraterrestrial being. In detail, Elizabeth claims to have been visited by an occupant of this supposed spaceship and began a courtship with him. The cosmic Casanova is said to have been a crew member of the UFO who went by the name Akon. While Elizabeth and Akon may have had one of the most extreme long-distance relationships in history in the years that followed, she claims to have only communicated telepathically. In 1956, it was finally time for the now-adult South African to set foot in the ominous spaceship herself. According to their own statements, the shiny silver, the perfectly round hull of the vehicle was equipped with a large dome. When Elizabeth saw her galactic lover a short time later, a great weight was lifted from her heart. Akon was not a slippery green alien like we know from typical science fiction movies, but actually had the shape of an extremely attractive human being. The same was true for Akon's peers, who, in addition to their pretty appearance, also had a very gentle, considerate personality. When Elizabeth returned from her space excursion, she's said to have had a wide variety of intelligence agents on her heels. Since Akon could see that his loved one was in danger, he took her to his home planet Meton, which was near Proxima Centauri. With the romantic relationship between the two now taking place near large seas and many small islands, it was not long before the love between the extraterrestrial and the human woman was crowned by the birth of a child together. However, as they would soon find out, their love was not meant to last. This is because Elizabeth's body was not adapted to the natural conditions on Meton. She was forced to leave her child and her lover and return to Earth. Naturally, Elizabeth has no evidence of her time on the planet of Meton and cannot firmly convince anyone that she's actually telling the truth. We have to keep in mind, stories like this have been shared all over the world, thus it's entirely possible that every word Elizabeth shared was true. However, we can't rule out the idea that she could have made it up in order to gain fame and attention from her peers. What do you think? Do you believe that Elizabeth was telling the truth, or did she make it up? Let us know in the comments. Travis Walton. Imagine you want to go about your normal duties as a lumberjack, yet find yourself aboard a flying saucer just before the end of the day. According to the American Travis Walton, what initially sounds like the plot of a trashy B-movie became a genuine reality. On November 5, 1975, the then 18-year-old was in a wooded area in Arizona with his colleagues when a bright object in the shape of a flat disc suddenly appeared over the men's heads. Instead of fleeing in panic, Travis is said to have approached the UFO before finally being struck by a bright flash of light and disappearing. The other forest workers then immediately fled the forest. After the frightened men had collected themselves and processed the situation, they returned to the scene of the inexplicable incident, but there was no trace of either Travis or the spaceship. 5 days would pass before Travis finally returned. Since the story about the alleged alien kidnapping of the young man seemed unbelievable at first, Travis and his colleagues were subjected to multiple lie detector tests with conflicting results. Travis insists that the story he's shared is 100% true, as do his friends. However, there's no evidence to support Travis's story, leading many people to believe that he could have simply made it up. Though a man like this would have had seemingly no reason at all to concoct such a bizarre series of lies. Thus, many people believe that he's most likely telling the truth. As was the case with the previous story as well, we have to keep in mind that this is not an isolated incident. In fact, dozens of people have shared eerily similar stories over the years. Travis is just one of many people that claim to be abducted by aliens. Barney and Betty Hill. While many self-proclaimed victims are all too happy to go public with the eerie details of their alien abductions, things were a little different for Barney and Betty Hill. The American couple was only under hypnosis able to do so and reveal the details of that fateful night that's said to have happened on September 20th, 1961. But what happened? The two were driving on a lonely stretch of road at night when they noticed a glowing, floating structure. A moment later, the object was gone, and Barney and Betty mysteriously found themselves on a road 100 kilometers to the south. At first, the couple couldn't explain how this eerie blackout took place, as well as the anxiety and sleep problems that would come about in the weeks that followed. After various doctors couldn't find a cause for the problems of the two, the Hills finally went into the care of a psychiatrist named Benjamin Simon. The doctor hypnotized Betty and Barney and got to hear the most disturbing story possible. The two were stopped by small, gray creatures and then taken on board a spaceship. Once there, Betty was questioned in detail and subjected to various medical examinations. To get a better picture of Earth's inhabitants, the aliens took samples of Betty's nails, hair, and skin. After the aliens finished working on their involuntary subjects, they altered the two's memories so that they could no longer remember the incident. Even though the spouses disagree on some details, such as the exact appearance of their alien kidnappers, Betty Hill maintained the authenticity of the story until her death in 2004. In the years since the story took place, the story of Barney and Betty Hill has become one of the most convincing stories of alien abduction in somewhat modern times. The two had been sharing their story far and wide ever since the evening of their supposed abduction. However, one question must be asked. If the two were unable to recall what they had seen that evening and required hypnosis in order to recall the events, how were they suddenly able to recall every detail with complete clarity in the years that followed without the help of hypnosis? This question has never been answered, but it seems safe to assume that something very bizarre happened to the couple that evening. Unfortunately, the two are no longer around to share their story, but many people believe that this is one of the most convincing stories of an alien abduction that has ever been shared. Frederick VALENTICH. A 20-year-old Frederick VALENTICH disappeared while on a 125-mile training flight in a Cessna 182L aircraft over the Bass Strait in Australia on Saturday, October 21, 1978. Valentich was described to have been a flying saucer enthusiast, and during his final flight, he had radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being potentially followed by an aircraft about 300 meters above him. At 7:06 p.m., Valentich radioed Air Traffic Control, stating that an unidentified aircraft was following him at 1,400 meters, but was told there was no known traffic at that level. Valentich said he could see a large unknown aircraft that appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright lights. He was unable to confirm its type, but said it had passed about 300 meters overhead and was moving at high speed. Valentich then reported that the aircraft was approaching him from the east and claimed the other pilot appeared to be intentionally toying with him. He also said the craft was, in his words, orbiting above him, and that it had a shiny metal surface and a green light on it. It was at this time that Valentich reported that he was encountering engine problems. When asked to identify the aircraft, Valentich radioed, "It isn't an aircraft." Just then, his transmission was interrupted by unidentified noise described as being metallic scraping sounds, and all contact was lost. On the same night of his disappearance, residents on the ground had also reported UFOs in the area. However, the Associated Press states that the Department of Transport wasn't convinced that a UFO was to blame for Valentich's disappearance. Many officials speculate that Valentich became disoriented and possibly saw his own lights reflected in the water or lights from a nearby island while flying upside down. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. On the evening of October 11, 1973, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker just wanted to spend their time on a relaxing fishing trip. At the time, no one could have predicted that it would ultimately be the two friends who would end up on the internet, sharing their bizarre stories for all the world to see. The story that the men then told the local police station can be summarized as follows. While the two were fishing on the west bank of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, they suddenly heard a type of whirring noise that they couldn't trace to any known source. Then, 2 blue flashing lights and an oval object with a diameter of 12 meters appeared in the sky. During the apparition, the men said they were unable to move. Therefore, they were helpless and left at the mercy of 3 robotic beings equipped with crab-like claws and could not resist being dragged aboard the spaceship. There, the two are said to have been subjected to some bizarre examinations before they were finally released again. Stories of strange flying saucers and other UFOs have been reported in the area many times since then. While the men don't have much evidence to support their outlandish story, they firmly insist that what they've shared with the public is true. After all, what would these men stand to gain from crafting such a lie? Up until this moment, the men were known for being somewhat reserved and simply wanted to spend a quiet evening fishing. Thus, they don't seem like the type of individuals to come up with such a bizarre series of events on their own. What really happened that day may never be fully understood. What also remains unknown is why these alien robotic creatures would have wanted to bring these 2 ordinary people aboard the ship. It's possible they needed to conduct testing to better understand the human race. However, it's also possible that the entire event never happened. What do you think? Were Charles and Calvin lying? Or did the events of that evening truly take place the way they claimed? Let us know in the comments. Alright folks, now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on the mysterious alien abductions? Do you believe in the authenticity of these exciting stories? Or are they nothing but modern fairy tales created to help their inventors gain some fame? Let us know your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed our foray into the world of eerie close encounters of the third kind, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to stay up to date from now on as well. Thank you for watching. Have a good one and see you next time.